learn how to trim a flat foot, guys. Okay, so for a flat foot, for any foot that is, you need to assess your thickness. So one way to do that is to feel and try to visualize what the thickness is around the bottom. Feel the weight of the piece, kind of, if I can't reach, but if you can reach all the way down to here with your hands, you can kind of feel the thickness there. Kind of using this thumb and then my fingers on the inside, I can kind of get an idea of how much clay is in this general area. To figure out how much clay is here, you can use some rulers. So if you lay anything flat against the top, and then if you at least have one ruler, you can stick your ruler down into the center and measure and say that's 4.5. And then I can measure here and it's 5. So the difference between the two is 1/2 inch. So I know that I have 1/2 inch of thickness at the bottom, and 1/2 inch looks like that. So I know I could probably take away about 1/4 inch of thickness, okay? So that just gives me an idea of how much clay I can actually remove. Ultimately, the goal is to make this all equally thick all the way around, and we don't want it to be bottom heavy, okay? So the first thing I need to do to trim this is to get it centered on the wheel. So I can use the lines that are on the wheel to do that. I can always draw an extra line if I need with a pencil. I can also take some wet clay, and as it's spinning, draw a line of wet clay as well. So just by kicking this once or twice, I can see that this is off center based on those rings. So I'm just gonna kind of get that a little closer to center that way. Now the way that I like to center is I'll give it a couple kicks, so it's not super fast, and then I rest my hands on my splash pan and my pointer finger stays stationary. And then I allow it to just touch my piece. And if it's touching my piece all the way around, I know that it's centered. Now I'm not coming here and just laying my hand on the piece, okay? I'm finding a spot and keeping my pointer finger steady. So I know that it kind of is backing away from my hand in one spot, but I feel like this is a little flat edge. So it's touching my finger all the way around except for right here. So I think that's where I pushed it off the wheel, so it got a little flat. So I think I'm centered. Now if I wasn't centered, let's take it off a little bit, it might look more like this. So if you can see, it's touching my finger and moving away. To remedy this, I would stop my wheel where it's touching, and then I would push the opposite way, just a little nudge, and then I would kick again. Still not quite centered. So it's touching my finger from here to here, so I'm gonna split the difference and just nudge a little bit. And I still have a big push on my finger right here. So again, another little nudge. And now I'm back to center, okay? So now I'm gonna stop my wheel. I'm gonna make a couple little footballs out of my clay. A little football. Firm pressure. Angled pressure. I'm just gonna get these little nugs attached. So we attach all the pieces all the way around, so when we start to trim up here, the piece doesn't fly all over the place. Now there's lots of different trimming tools. This is the one that I always gravitate towards. Okay, it's just the one that I love. Okay. The only other tool that I typically use when trimming is a rubber rib to help me smooth, which I'll use later. So at this point I can go a little bit faster. We want to do this when our clay is leather hard, so we don't want it to be sticky to the touch. It should accept like a fingernail poke, and it shouldn't be so incredibly dry that it's dusty and like almost white looking. This is almost a little bit too dry, but it'll be fine. When we're trimming and our trimmings are falling away, we want nice curls, like ringlet curls. If it's coming away in flakes, like flaked chocolate, it's a little bit dry. And if you're gouging into your piece, it's probably a little bit too wet. Okay, so I hold my tool in my right hand. I am left-handed, and I did used to trim with my left hand, but through the years, it's become my right hand. So because this is a flat foot, all I'm gonna do is clean up this edge and make it so the pot transitions nicely to the base. So I don't hold it like a pencil, I hold it, I don't know, like a stick, I guess. And I just start trimming. And I keep my right hand on the piece, just in case I knock it off, I can catch it. My elbows are on my legs. I'm not up like this, okay? Wobbly. I'm nice and rooted in my body like always when we're throwing. And so these little curly cues are okay. They're coming off as curly cues. And now I'm moving the tool up and down. Just clean up this bottom edge. One thing that I do a lot when I'm trimming is I look at it from the side and I look at the profile of the piece. I sometimes like to make a little flat edge there, and that just gives a place for the glaze to kind of catch. You don't want to trim too far down, because as you get further away from the base, you're going to get probably more uncentered. Just depends on what you're doing, but for just a foot, we just kind of work in this top little quarter section. Okay, so the outside is good. Now I want to work on the inside. So the foot ring itself will be about right here. So what I normally do is I'll come in and I'll make a line, and then this is what I call the hollow. So I'm going to hollow this out, not all the way through to make a whole hollow. But I'm just going to take away a little bit of clay to get rid of some of the thickness. Remember, I had about 1/2 inch, so I know that I can go down about 1/4 inch. And again, look, I've transferred back to my left hand. I think I just used both. And now I'm holding it like a pencil. Sometimes I start in the center and work my way out. Other times I'll just go from the outside and come in. I tap it and I listen to the sound. As you get better and better at pottery and you're doing it more and more, you'll realize that the sound can kind of give you an idea of when it's thick enough or thin enough, or when it's too thin. And just a little light pressure, really steady hands, because the clay can take you and catch. If you've noticed, I'm always using 2 hands on the tool. I'm never just using 1 hand. Even when I was over here, I was kind of helping the other hand. So the only other piece now that I want to do is I want to just round out this foot ring. So I don't really want to take away clay at this point. I'm just cleaning up the foot ring, putting some tooling marks on it, and rounding it slightly. A rounded foot has more places to sit flat than a flat foot, believe it or not. And inevitably you will trim through a bottom of one of your pieces, and that is totally fine. Like I've always said, you need to take the clay too far to know when to stop. So I have done it plenty of times where I put a hole in the foot. The last thing I like to do is just kind of take the rib over. And this is on the drier side, but the rib can kind of smooth out some stuff that's going on. Might be a little rough. It'll be a little bit smoother after I take the rib over the piece. And then the last thing you need to do when you're completely done is sign the bottom, and I always put the year too. I might tell you that you need to put some additional information carved into the bottom, but always sign your work. It's important, because then you are a true potter, a true artist, signing the work that you have created. When you're done, you can stop your wheel, nice and smooth. Carefully peel back these lugs of clay. And there you have a nice flat foot. It's evenly weighted now. It's not too heavy at the bottom. It'll sit flush to the table. And that guy's done. I just need to sign it and date it.